Hey, recently I was almost a victim of a real estate scam here in Mexico. And if you own a house or an apartment or even vacant land, this is a video you probably should watch. Hi, my name is Troy, and welcome to my channel, Silver Fox in Mexico. So let's just get straight into the story of what happened to me, and I'll give you an example at the end. Um, so about a few weeks ago in Morelia, I was outside of my house cutting the grass. It's a really small yard, so I was using a electric weed whacker. And the development that I live in is relatively new. It's got 88 houses in it. It's fenced in. They were still in the process of putting up the automatic gates. So basically it means that if the gates were open, anybody had access to the development. And as I'm cutting the grass, a truck pulls past my house, and it's kind of like a cattle truck where it's got a flatbed with sideboards and a tarp on it. And I could see into the truck. It had like a refrigerator and other household appliances. And after it parked, a car came behind it and parked a little farther up. I didn't think anything about it. There's a lot of houses in a development that have recently finally closed, and the new owners are slowly moving into those houses. As I'm cutting the grass, one of the gentlemen walks up to me and asks me if I worked there, which I thought was kind of surprising. Most Mexicans don't hire a gringo to cut their grass. And so I told him in Spanish, no, I don't work here. And he's like, "Do you live here?" And no, yeah, I live here. This is my house. And he's like, "Oh, well, I'm supposed to rent this house." And I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" And in his hand, he had a folder, and he opened up the folder, and he had a contract, and it actually had my my house address on there. It was the right address. It was the right legal description on there. And he goes, "Well, I rented a house from Tres Marias, and Tres Marias is a very large housing developer in the northeast part of Morelia. And that's who I actually bought my house from." And I said, "No, this house isn't for rent. It was currently for sale, but it's not for rent." And he's like, "There must be some mistake." So I told him, I said, "Hey, wait on a second. Let me call my girlfriend. Maybe she can help us." So I called my girlfriend and told her what was going on, and we were doing a FaceTime. And so she started talking to this gentleman, and he wasn't really happy to see her. I think what he was expected was a gringa who spoke Spanish. Instead, he got a Mexican woman from the area. And she told him absolutely not. The house wasn't for rent. It was for sale only. And he insisted, "Oh, I saw a house, but it wasn't this one. There's a mistake somewhere." So he is in the process of leaving, and it dawns on me from the United States that there's frequently times where people will act like they own a house and collect the first month's rent and deposit and scam the potential renter. And that's what I thought was happening. And so I ran after the gentleman and I said, "Did you pay any rent or deposit?" And he was like, he's like, I'm just going to go talk to Tres Marias." So while I was doing that, my girlfriend actually called the realtor from Tres Marias, and she said, "No, these guys are driving around. They're not renting. What they're doing is they're driving around and they're looking for an empty property. And what they do is if they find an empty property, they come in, they have locksmith tools, they undo the locks, they get in the house, they unload their truck, put it in there, change the locks, and now they become what we call in the United States a squatter. And in Mexico, they have a lot of rights, and it can take 1 to 2 years to get somebody out of your house. By luck, I just happened to be home that afternoon and prevented them from accessing my house. So if I wouldn't have been there, If I would have been at the store and gone away for the weekend, I would have come back and these people would have been living in my house with little recourse. Now, I want to point out that I don't think that I was singled out because I'm an American or a gringo. I really think that this happens a lot, and it just happens to be that there were a lot of unoccupied homes in that development, and they just happened to pick mine for some reason, and decided they were going to try to temporarily steal it. Thankfully, nothing happened. The development was going after these guys. They were trying to find them, and I'm sure that the security police did indeed find them. We had cameras going in a lot of the houses in the development, and that was turned over to the developer, and hopefully they've been arrested. Now, having said that, I'm going to add on a little piece at the end of this, with what's near my house in Querétaro and what I saw in a different kind of squatter, and this squatter is going to be on raw land. So stay tuned for that. It's coming up next. Talk to you soon.
So here's an example of a empty lot property invasion. You can see the fence here that was all intact about a month ago, and slowly they kept on beating up the fence to get at a point where it was weak, and now they've just actually taken out a whole section of there, and you can see where they've got some of their clothes and stuff. A few days ago they had a tarp set up like a teepee. Someone called the police on them and they took them away, but they were back the next day, and it's various stages of disarray. And this can happen if you don't put up a wall, like you can see in the back, a brick wall, something solid that keeps people out. But now it could probably take a year or two to get these guys removed, because they just haven't done the proper security with putting just a simple chain link fence. Here's literally the next day. I filmed the last section of the video yesterday, and it looks like potentially either the owner of the property or the one of the neighbors who was unhappy with the person who was squatting on the land, and somebody torched it, as you can see, and pretty much forced the person who was living here out of the territory.
Okay, we're back. You've seen what an empty lot squatter looks like and the results. So you're probably asking yourself, well, what can I do to protect myself? Well, if you have an empty lot, the best way to do it is to build a brick wall, and so that they just can't climb over it. That's the best way. If it's hard, they're not going to do it. They're looking for something with a chain link fence that they could just kick over. If there's no fence at all, they're going to be able to build on it. If you have a house or an apartment, the best thing you can do is make sure that you have bars on your doors and windows. Upgrade your lock. I've seen some 3-dimensional key locks that are excellent. I had one on a rental property. I got locked out. It took the locksmith like 45 minutes to pick the lock because it's so hard with those 3-dimensional locks. So definitely explore, go to Home Depot and check out the different lock systems that they have and ask them for advice about the best one for you. I've seen some with, a thumbprint, entry only, and face recognition, but I haven't really explored those. And finally, probably the easiest and most important thing you do is know who your neighbors are and make sure they know who you are, and can form a community watch group or look out for each other. A lot of Mexicans use security cameras. They'll have the footage. I know that we've been asked in the past to provide footage for a neighbor because somebody had gotten robbed in another city. So those are the 3 recommendations that I have. If you guys have had something like this happen to you, put it down in the comments and let me know. I'm sure a lot of other people would be curious about your experiences. And if you have suggestions for security upgrades to keep you and your family safe, I would love to hear that too. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.